Hey, hey, and happy Halloween or happy Samhain, as we're going to discuss today, and happy new moon. It's a big week in astrology. I can say this every week. It's absolutely true. We've got some big energies, of course. How are we all riding? Are we rolling with working through our deepest, darkest wounds and fears? Is that anyone else's vibe? Welcome to Scorpio season. We're still in it. We are well and truly into the throes of Scorpio season. My previous video does discuss that in more depth. I make a little bit of lightness about it today, but it's an intense time. How are you finding it? We spoke last week about the intensity of Scorpio season, but also about the beauty of all of the opportunities we get to utilize for transcending our inner depths, for really going there, getting down with the nitty gritty and seeing what we can alchemize in our deepest wounds, in our darkest fears, in our shadow aspects. And I'm in the thick of that right now. I am definitely feeling that. How are you riding? I would love to know. We've got some interesting astrology this week. We've got some interesting Wheel of the Year energy as well. I always love to think about the original meaning of significant times, significant holidays on the Wheel of the Year, such as Halloween or as it's originally known, Samhain. Now, I love to do this because we can get really waylaid, and I don't want to poo-poo these fun times, these fun celebrations. You know, my children are loving it, and I'm doing all the exciting things. We're doing all the trick-or-treating, we're doing all the sweets. It's all of that, and doing all the pumpkin carving, and it's great. But I really feel in my heart of hearts that we miss the originality, the authenticity of what these things actually originally meant. And we kind of can go along with just doing them, can't we? Well, it's always been done. And yes, it's fun and it's great. So I'm all up for the fun, but I do like to give some reverence to what the traditional seasons and significant points on the Wheel of the Year mean. So we're going to talk a little bit about Samhain before we go into the astrology. And I'm going to share my chart with you in a moment for the new moon tomorrow. It's very exciting. On Friday, the 1st of November, we have the new moon. So we're going to get into that. But first, happy Halloween. So, All Hallows Eve is where Halloween originates and the name from, and dates back to, it's got some various meanings actually. I can resonate and understand and reflect and connect most with the original pagan celebration, as far as I've read, in terms of it's a real celebration of the end of the summer and harvest. And I've spoken about this before in previous videos in terms of the seasonal change with autumn. It's a really lovely time for taking stock of the summer, taking stock of inner and outer resources to me. And this is why this season's super transformational, which really links into the astrology. Of course, for me, these seasons and these significant points on the Wheel of the Year always reflect to me the astrology, because there's that organic energy there. It's linked to the seasons, and we can see that with autumn and the transformation, and of course with Scorpio season. So we've got this intensity. We're starting to take stock of our inner and outer reserves, and that's what it's all about. So if we've had a good harvest, if we've had a good summer, if we've built up our crops, and again, I feel like that's a really inner and outer thing. You know, if we've had for me, like a good period of summer vibes, and a good crop in many senses, with the weather, with also what we've gained from those summer months. For me, it's energizing. Ideally, we didn't have a great summer this year, so I can really feel that, to be honest. So yeah, we've got this sense here of this transformative alchemical process of going into winter. Basically, the end of summer, we're celebrating that with Samhain. And also the connotations for me are really interesting. So we kind of do these things now. We carve pumpkins and we go trick-or-treating, but why? Where does it come from? And I find that interesting. So some of the possible, original explanations, obviously none of us were there. So we can only draw upon what's been read or spoken or taught over the years and over the eons. And of course, things do change and things get changed. But I can understand and reflect and resonate with the this harvest, and that's the pumpkins, and I can really resonate with the veil being very thin at this time because it's Scorpio season. So it's a celebration of the dead as well, with the Day of the Dead. That's another connotation. And I really like that again because to me it intrinsically fits with this organic seasonal wheel of the year with Scorpio energy. Scorpio, as we discussed last week, isn't afraid to get down in the dirty, down in the nitty gritty. Let's work through all of the deepest, darkest stuff. It's not afraid of death. It's very comfortable here. Actually, it's comfortable. It's not afraid. Scorpio's one of the bravest, and in that respect, most powerful. Now, that doesn't mean Scorpio energy or Scorpios or people with a strong Scorpio placement don't ever have fears or don't ever feel afraid of things, but it just gives a real sense of power and strength in navigating that. So it's not about not feeling the fear, but it's about feeling the fear and doing it anyway. It's about going into those fears, getting really kind of comfortable in that work, in that shadow aspect, as we were talking about last week, or in all of our shadow aspects, the light and the dark. The Scorpio is really here for it, and our collective life force energy with the sun in Scorpio at the moment, we're really here for this. Well, I'm going to be honest, I can feel it's a really alchemical, really intense time. So here for it in the sense of, let's do this. This is happening. We're growing, we're evolving, and we're doing that through looking at our deepest wounds and darkest depths and fears and shadow aspects, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's comfortable. So, and Scorpio can do that. Scorpio energy can do that. So the kind of that this is why we have to look at the letting go, the lack of trying to control, because there's no point, and this is something else that Scorpio energy teaches us to do really beautifully is we want to control, and a large part of Scorpio energy is about control, but actually how much control do we have most of the time anyway over our kind of processes and life stuff. I'm just gonna so yeah, it's a really interesting time, but it's a really golden time in terms of what can feel really challenging and difficult now can be our gold later on. And I sometimes think that it's really easy to not give the growth phase, which is the hardest part, which is the alchemical stuff, the same weight and credit as when we're feeling light, when we can make all the realizations really synergistically and beautifully, and there's a lot of lightness and rainbows and unicorns. And I'm not saying it's I'm kind of really generalizing, but without these really low inward or dark feeling times, that's where we get most of our growth. Essentially, that is how and where we grow the most is through the darkness, is through the discomfort. And what's on the other side of that is usually a breakthrough, is usually more expansion, is usually more feeling more evolved, but going through the darkness is absolutely a part of that and needed. So here we are in the thick of it. I'm feeling it. I hope you're doing well through it. We've got also the connotations, and I won't poo-poo it too much, but we've got huge conditioning around the holidays, with the consumerism aspect. I've got to just mention it because that's really close to my heart, without sounding like a grumpy old crone. The conditioning of the sugar industry and health, that the impact on our health as a collective with the sugar industry, and of course trick or treating and Halloween is up there with being a big pinnacle in that, and actually we again that is far removed from the original connotations of Samhain, but here we are. And so it's just about navigating it, isn't it, with the best ease and flow that we can, and taking the lightness where we can get it, and rolling with, and not taking life too seriously. I don't want to take life too seriously, but equally I think it's about being real and raw and authentic and true to what's on our heart. So that's where I'm at. And some other connotations of Halloween. So it's just Around yeah, that was it. The costumes was the one last point I was going to make on that. Was originally around, we've got the trick-or-treating thing and the costumes, which is all loads of fun, but actually originally it's about that veil being thin. If I can, again, my resonance is this being most linked to Scorpio season and this real comfort in the death phase. You know, as we were saying, Scorpio's comfortable here in this death phase, and it's about what needs to go, what needs to be shed, what's decayed. This is the end of the summer. This is the end of that lighter period. We've harvested the crops. It's time to really take stock and settle down into hibernation mode for winter, with enough inner and outer reserves to do so and get through those cold winter months that are quite challenging, and in years gone by would have been super challenging to get through on all levels, health and well-being, and just having enough to eat. So we can see this real comfort in, like, let's get into it. Let's get really comfortable with this death process. It's like the death of the summer, the death of the crops, and all of the things that have been harvested is now, we've done all the fruition bit, we're now bedding down. And therefore that veil being very thin at the moment, because with the links to death and with the links to the death rebirth cycle, we're in the death phase right now. So before we have this beautiful renewal in spring up ahead, but we've got the winter to get through first. So we've got this death phase and the veil being very thin, and that link again to the other side, to the underworld, to spirits. And the costumes were originally worn apparently to ward off the evil spirits. So again, this reflection of being very discerning of what we're letting in is really interesting to me. It's about a connection with the other side, but we don't want to have no boundaries and let everything in. So again, those things are quite interesting to me as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on Halloween or Samhain, and see what you think of it all, what your celebrations are, what you're doing, and also any of the original meanings that you may resonate with or not. So I'd love to hear that. So let's get into the current chart for tomorrow's new moon. So Friday, the 1st of November, is our new moon at 12:47 UK time. So we've got a lunchtime, early afternoon slot over here in the UK, and we're very much in the thick of this energy now. So I'm going to use my cursor over here. We've got the new moon and the sun there together. Always with a new moon, we have that, you can't see the moon visibly because of the sun going over. And we've got these two together here always as well. It's good to think about with a new moon, the link between the sun and the moon together, what that kind of push-pull effect is as well. And we've got that interesting energy of our life force, our outer energy, our collective life force, our vitality, in conjunction, so in really close synergy with our moon, our subconscious side, our intuitive side, our more hidden side, and our reflective side as well. It's also a dance here between the masculine and feminine, with the moon and the sun there together. The divine masculine and feminine life force energy, and the surrender of the moon as well. Also, new moons generally, just to mention on a general point, is a great time for a new beginning. So new lunar month starting in the themes of Scorpio stuff. So if you're not already alchemizing your shit, then you might want to think about if there's any opportunities you can take from doing so. Is there any niggly bits? Is there anything that comes back round? Is there anything you're not wanting to look at that might be a good time to get it done, get it up, get the shadows up and out into the light, so they can be transcended, transmuted, understood better, therapized, if that's a word. Great time for therapy, great time for alchemizing, great time for journeys, inner and outer, meditations, shamanic stuff, getting deep, getting dark, getting down with it. What's going on? What's the deepest, darkest crevices that we have? And let's go there. Let's do it. We've got the balls to do it with Scorpio season and the new moon, all this Scorpio energy. We haven't just got the sun and moon there. We've also got Mercury there as well, not conjunct with the moon and sun, but all there packed in Scorpio. So, and the midheaven as well. So the MC there, that's not a planet, that's a zodiac point. That's the midheaven. That's around our career line usually. So again, we've just kind of got this collective energy around Scorpio and how that's kind of playing out in our roles, in our authority roles and our career roles and all of that kind of thing. That's a very general sense, but we do have that energy at play. And Mercury, as I touched on Mercury in Scorpio in our last video, in the Scorpio season video, all of that is still current, by the way, if you want to check that video out. And we've got this real ability to detect, to get to grips with, to psychoanalyze, to be the psychotherapist. Mercury in Scorpio is amazing for all of those things. And really getting to grips with our deepest demons, inner wounds, and all of the stuff that we want to kind of work through for the purpose of doing another layer of healing. This is it, this is life being in its cyclical nature and us evolving in a cyclical way. We're always going to have stuff to work through, but for the better, because it gives us new gifts, new tools, new resources, new understandings, new realizations, new learning about ourselves and the world around us and our relationships. It gives us such a lot of wisdom to share and go through these things in these inner processes. As we were saying, not always comfortable, not always easy, but the gold is at the end, and I really believe that. So we've got this beautiful cluster in Scorpio. It is opposite. So the Mercury side of that, the more thinking and planning and ideas around that Scorpio theme of alchemy, intensity, trying to learn how to relinquish control. That is all opposite within 3 degrees, so pretty close opposition to Uranus. With that, we can expect some truth bombs around this energy. It's 3 degrees, so it's knocked off a bit, but that's truth bomb energy. Mercury opposite Uranus. So unexpected outbursts, unexpected truths, unexpected comments, thoughts, feelings that are articulated, through the written word or spoken word, but maybe out the blue with Uranus energy. Uranus in Taurus there opposite. Uranus, one of the slow movers, wading through Taurus at the moment, but opposite Mercury in Scorpio is activating that Scorpio energy. So this could be, world stage stuff as well as our own personal thinking processes. And yeah, of course, there's truth bombs going off all the time, isn't there? So this is another little aspect where that energy is in alignment with what's happening on the world stage too. Just going to work around the chart a little bit. So we've got a few things going on this week, a few things that are still going on from last week that are current and still activated and still worth thinking about. I didn't mention last week, Venus is in Sagittarius. She's about halfway through Sagittarius now. So that's that I find that a bit of lightness amongst the Scorpio intensity, which is I'm a bit biased because I'm a Sagittarius moon, but Venus in Sag is bringing some lightness, bringing some optimism, bringing some enthusiasm, but tends also towards a little bit of exaggeration, can be a bit grandiose with Sag. And so our relationships can have those energies. But it's uplifting, it's positive, it's upbeat. And it's gregarious. It's got that sociable edge, which is a nice mix. It's a bit of a contrast, a big bit of a contrast, but it's a bit of lightness amongst that intensity. So we'll take that. I'm gonna take that. Venus in Sag. She's 3 degrees off of the within an opposition, just about still within an opposition to Jupiter. So again, we're expanding. So Jupiter is planet that rules Sagittarius. So we've got this big Sag energy on our relationship line. So relationship issues with where Jupiter and Sagittarius are involved, things can be blown up as well because it expands. So we've got that beautiful uplift and the positivity and the optimism, huge optimism with Sag energy and Jupiter energy. So, but that can also expand anywhere it touches. So we can have, again, kind of big things come up with our relationship, but we can also have this real positive energy around it as well with those things, and a touch of luck. Jupiter and Sag are renowned for being, having a touch of luck, known as the great benefic, Jupiter, because it always brings good fortune. We just have to watch that we're not over exaggerating or being too frivolous or overspending. Those are things to kind of look out for. It's, you know, this is why we have this, all the planets and all the aspects and all the contrast that we do within one chart, within any of our charts, because we need all of it. You know, we couldn't just all be Jupiterian. As much as, you know, I love Jupiter energy, I've got a bucket load of it in my chart, and it, you know, it really gets me through because it's uplifting and, you know, positive, and it's all the philosophy and wisdom and, you know, travel, long haul, and thinking about a billion books you want to read and higher education. And you know, it's a fascinating broad scope in so many ways and a very positive one. But if we were that all the time, we would really probably wouldn't get a huge amount done. We wouldn't get things structured and in place and boundaried and, you know, resources, which is Saturn's job over there. Here's Saturn here down in Pisces, so not actually close enough to square those. A square is a challenging aspect that requires some action, but it's not close enough. So we've got 5 degrees square. So it's still wide. I mean, it's that it's knocking off, it's knocked off. So I think we've had Venus squaring Saturn, which is actually around boundaries and, you know, making things more serious potentially, which again doesn't always have to be a negative thing. Human mind loves to go, it's this, you know, good, bad, the ugly, but actually it just is. And these beautiful spectrums of energies we have in each planet and sign. So Saturn would have been bringing a lot of thought and caution and care and boundaries and sometimes restrictions to our relationships. He's down here in Pisces, wading through another fairly slow moving planet, wading through our, you know, this is like the dissolving of the structures. And I've done previous videos around this as well, about new systems are go, because Saturn in Pisces is like dissolving some issues around the, let's put it really generally, old paradigms, you know, an imbalanced patriarchal system. We're still in it very much, but that's one of the things with the kind of age of Pisces that Saturn is working through, one of the aspects. And of course, with Pluto as well. Pluto, a long-term moving planet. I'm going to come on to Pluto now. Very significant energy here with Pluto, big energy, still very activated in the sky, exactly activated with Mars opposite to the degree, exact opposition there. We talked about this last time because that's a slower mover. And Pluto is doing a slow dance at the moment. He's been back through Capricorn. He's now in what's known as the critical degree, the final degree of Capricorn, there to really purge our systems, structures, collective energy in a, again, all about death, rebirth processes for this huge transformation that we are going through. Being in the last degree of Capricorn, it's giving us all the final things that need to be cleared out, to be purged, to be, you know, Pluto's the god of the underworld. He's quite happy to go there, get deep, bring up all of the shit that needs to be brought up, to clear it all out. And he's going to be moving back into Aquarius in a couple of weeks. I think it's around the 19th without checking of November. He's been into Aquarius a few times already, but he's been doing this slow dance with the retrograde. So he's now moving forward again, but he's in this final degree of Capricorn, making sure that we've cleared out all our shit from, and making sure that the system is changing. So it's exciting. We're still in the throes of it at the moment, I feel, but we are moving forward. We are evolving. It's things are happening, changes are, and of course, been well underway for a while. And when we see Pluto moving back into Aquarius, we'll start to see more advances again in our technology, more advances in our humanitarianism, more advances in our collective structures being more equal. I'm really hopeful for that. I'm really hopeful for that. The astrology's there. So it's all good signs. Let's see. So Pluto and Mars highly activated still, even more so than last week, an exact opposition now. I talked about it last week, but it's really significant with Scorpio energy as well, because Scorpio has 2 planetary rulers, Pluto and Mars, they're activated together at the same time as a Scorpio new moon, with my Mercury there as well in Scorpio season. So let's just have a huge dose of Scorpio energy. It's transformation, it's intensity, it's deep, it's dark. I'm not going to say I'm hanging out for Sag season, but I'm just going to say I do start to notice a bit more lightness when we get to Sag season next month. So just throwing that out there. And what else have we got going on? So I've touched on Pisces, touched on Uranus opposite Mercury there with the truth bombs. Just going to mention Chiron as well. He's actually trining Venus, which is nice, within 3 degrees there. So still still in opposition, still making the trine. So this is favorable healing to our relationships as well. So in addition to what we've already mentioned about relationships, this is a favorable energy hitting our relationships. Now, Chiron does like in Aries, does like to its deepest wound territory again. So it's not dissimilar to what we're working through with our alchemy stuff in Scorpio. Again, a real kind of therapy approach to working through stuff in all the senses, whether that's through ourselves and our own insight and our own, intuition and our own doing the work, or whether that's through seeking support. But this is a touch of favorable energy from that energy, from the alchemical stuff onto our relationships directly with the trine Venus, trine Chiron. So any areas where we've had challenge, where we've had awareness of our wounds, where we've experienced wounds, can now again serve us something for our relationships moving forward. So that's really nice. And Mars in Cancer, again, also in the critical final degree there. So Mars is a quicker mover than Pluto. But when Mars moves into Leo, Mars is happier in Leo. Mars is happy in Leo. It's a fire sign. It's directive, outward, passionate energy. So that's going to be the change coming up there with Mars energy, which we'll probably touch on next time. So I'm going to call it a day, but it's been lovely to have these conversations with you. I hope it's brought some value to your week, and have a super Samhain. Enjoy the new moon energy, and I look forward to catching up with you next week. Sending much love.